Welcome to the Living Out Loud show with Michelle Wadleigh and Alan Vukas. In each episode, we will explore practical spirituality through inspiring and enlightening conversations. Be a part of our weekly conversation with a rotating cast of speakers, teachers, and authors as we uncover and share spiritual, mental, and emotional tools to help you live your authentic life out loud now. Oh, welcome to another episode 17 of the Living Out Loud show. I'm Alan Vukas.
I'm Michelle Wadleigh, and I welcome you here to another week's show for the Living Out Loud show. And we are about to launch on a new month that before now would have scared the bejesus out of me, but now I'm excited about it. And I know that Alan and I are going to be in a dance of conversations all month long to give you and bring to you a enriching and empowering conversation and all around self-care.
Yeah, because that is the topic this month, right? We are talking about embracing self-care. You know, I mean, each month we are here on the show. Michelle and I have these fun and engaging conversations and hopefully enlightening. I know they are to us, and they are to And
I'm growing. I know I'm growing.
and we invite you to be a part of the conversation too. So feel free, to join us. Throw your comments in the chats or reach out to us and let us know what your thoughts are on these topics. But each month we are on a different focus to support us in living our authentic life out loud. And this month it is new topic, new theme. We're embracing self-care. And it is. Yeah. Oh, that's in this month's Science of Mind magazine. This is some good stuff in here.
Folks, if you haven't subscribed to Science of Mind magazine yet, do so. You will be glad you did. It's, there's articles and treatments and, all sorts of wonderful stuff. Do yourself a favor. Buy one and give a subscription to a friend. They will be so glad.
Oh, yeah. Actually, I think we got a link for them actually at scienceofmind.com. You can go right there. And we're not sponsored by them or it is a valuable tool to have in your toolbox to support you on living a spiritual life, a life on purpose, from purpose. And we get plenty of messages out there of the way life should be or the shoulds and the musts and all of that. And just having something just that you can refer back to daily or just throughout the week to pause, to reflect. It's important. And not everybody has that. But I would just draw attention, if you do have the magazine, on page 28 is an article by Ellen Suazo, who's going to be our guest next week, since she was the author of the materials for this month around this theme that Centers for Spiritual Living, a number of centers are using. And so she crafted those. And so we get to speak with her next week about sort of a deeper dive of what was her inspiration around this topic of embracing self-care.
And this is slightly off topic, but it's just about celebrating diversity in a different form. One of the things I like about the Science of Mind organization, the Centers for Spiritual Living is really the name of the organization. I love that for the number of years now, the organization has invited in input and the expertise of people, not just from ministers, but from practitioners and lay people, that you get a diversity of flavors from people that have done all different levels of study, because, the practitioner role in the Centers for Spiritual Living is a critical role. It's a really important role. And so I love that Ellen, as a practitioner, gets to, shine. Totally shine. And I love that about our organization. It's just another kind of diversity and inclusivity. So, I'm just raising and praising the organization for the wisdom to include all voices from all levels and, the richness that comes when we open to possibility of other people.
Oh, yeah, because really the truth is, right, Michelle, we're all inlets and outlets of this one divine mind,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
intelligence. And I don't have any more access to it than you do, or we are. So for those who are making the space and making that wisdom available, to be a channel for that, then let's make sure there's room at the table for all to see and to be heard. And
Yeah.
I'm grateful for that. And
Yeah.
and just so so we do have. I just thought before we go into our topic, because this is going to be a big one. This topic of self-care has changed my life. And so I'm looking, and it's brought me up to here. So I'm really excited as to what diving into it deep this month is going to take me forward. But for those of you who aren't familiar with us, I guess we could do just a little introduction. Michelle, where are you at? What are you doing? And so just so people who are maybe listening.
Yeah. So I'm the founding spiritual director of the Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, and we are currently relocated back in the beautiful town of Montclair, New Jersey, where we started out 21 years ago. So I'm very excited. And I'm the founding director of the Planned Happiness Institute, which is an education nonprofit that I have. And I'm thrilled to be here and playing with my good friend, Alan. So I'm here to play.
Ah, that's nice. And I heard that 21 years. So you've been in this teaching. You've been steeped in this teaching for a while, and have supported many people on their journey.
Yeah.
And just as myself as well, I'm Alan Vukas, and I serve as the senior minister at Concordia Center for Spiritual Living here in Rhode Island. And I'm from Florida originally. And I'll tell you, love it here in New England, here in Rhode Island. And if you'd like to follow me, you can find me on Facebook at Rev Alan Vukas, or Concordia CSL, where we talk about these topics on our Facebook Live each week. And I'm writing at newthoughtnewlife.com, which is my personal blog. And I'm doing a deep dive. We'll talk more of it as we go into this, but you can check me out there, any of those places. So
I want to do true confessions.
I love it. Let's start there.
And that's just because somebody else you might have the same feeling as I do. And the fact is that before, not long ago, I definitely had self-care confused with selfishness and being self-serving. Not a great thing to confuse with each other. So I'm a little almost embarrassed that it has taken me this long, and yet I am thrilled that now the conversation is out. It's out with the organization, it's out with the monthly themes, and that we're going to do it this month, because I know I had to get right with that, because in thinking it was selfish, I realized I had a whole bunch of judgments behind that. And I'm pretty certain that a lot of this came from, I'm a mom of three sons and a grandmother. Anyone listening knows that about me. But so for me, my priorities were always children and family, and then self. And then as time went on, self got lower and lower, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work long term. So that's just my true confession. And I'm really happy to feel like I have a healing around this conversation, and really, again, looking forward to what we're doing here, together.
Yeah, it was that, I'm totally there with you, Michelle. That's the concept of self-care. And today's topic is the evolution of self-care, or another way to say it is evolving our self-care, self-care for our evolution. How's that? Self-care for our own evolution. And there was a quote from Andre Lord: "Self-care is not self-indulgence, it is self-preservation." self-preservation.
Yeah, I
And
did not have that. I
yeah,
did not have that down. And I know this is not blaming mom and dad thing, but I know that we didn't have that in my family.
right.
I had no clue what, what self-care looked like. I thought, if anything, my early years ago, my self-care, I thought it meant, well, putting on makeup and being dressed up nice. And the truth is, I don't like putting on makeup. I've never been that vain. And so, but I thought that was part of it. And it's just not. Obviously, it's not. And I'm really looking and figuring out what is it? What is it?
Well, we're expanding it, and that's really sort of what speaks to the gist of what we're talking about today is self-care, and what that means has evolved over time, and have we kept up with that evolution, and are we caring for ourselves, in fact, with the truth? Is our self-care in alignment with the truth of who we are? A few years ago, it was in 2018, I was invited to sit on a panel, and someone else that was sitting on the panel had said this, and I've borrowed it and I've used it, and it really stuck with me. But she said, self-care is the work. And she said it so blasé, just sort of self-care is the work. And then she went on, but I could not hear anything when she said
Wow.
that. It was like I couldn't hear anything else because my mind sort of did this, and
Yeah.
self-care is the work. Self-care is the work. And that really became a sort of a tone within me that began to unravel things. It was just as sort of like these mental constructs that I've had about self, about what's important, and caring for myself.
Mhm.
Um, this, self-care is the work is not exactly the same, but similar, like putting your oxygen mask on first.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
is in that vein. And so it has, because of what she said in 2018, and that's where I started this, that I said, oh, I'm curious as to where exploring it now is going to take me. My life is totally different after hearing what she had said. I'll give her credit. It was Reverend Nicole Merges, who's with the education department at Centers for Spiritual Living. But she just said it just so, and it was like it helped me have an epiphany. And I hope that we can continue to evolve that here this month through this discussion.
Again, too, and I see as a man, and you don't have children. So the good thing is that you and I are going to be able to balance the conversation, right?
Mm,
What self-care looks like for you it will be different, or anybody like you, any other single person or people without children. And it's I believe it's a really complicated, although you're a minister, so you have that piece. But self-care, when you are a mother or a grandmother or you're a caretaker, and I know some caretakers, I am coaching people who are caretakers with elderly parents, and what they're going through, and the stress of that, and how they don't necessarily always take care of themselves
right.
because they're taking care of their seniors, right? So this is kind of very complicated, to be honest with you. It truly is, because if you had told me, I mean, and everyone's been saying to me for years, so I would say, oh, I need to do this because I want to be an example for my kids, or I want to be healthy for my kids, or blah. And everybody would say to me, you got to do it for yourself. And I'm like, self? What do you mean for myself? It wasn't in my conversation. It didn't exist in me.
Right.
So I didn't have an epiphany like you did, but I've had a slow coming together.
Yes.
Thrilled. I'm just thrilled about it.
Yeah, I mean, so the whole concept of self-care has evolved as well. It was something that was brought into our culture, or the concept, back in the 50s in the medical establishment, with the intention of self-care meant of taking care of yourself, getting enough rest, eating the right foods, taking care of your physical body. And as we know, we're so much more than that.
Mm-hmm.
and bringing that mind body connection into that conversation, then they're really it needs to involve more than just our physical or these physical bodies. It is that and it is that and more. I just started reading a book this month in support of this. Cheryl Richardson, author and teacher and speaker and coach. I got some wisdom cards, self-care wisdom cards, but
Alan loves himself some cards.
I love cards. I have got I got all sorts of cards here. If we want to go about values, here's one on living your value. I got this. This is a new deck that I have. But anyway, I love the cards. And but she wrote a book called The Art of Extreme Self-Care, which I am using as sort of a catalyst for myself to sort of explore it intentionally, directed. And so I'm going to be doing some writing about that. But I just before the show, Michelle, we were talking about
how you have to share that.
Yeah, that for many of us, especially those who may have this conditioning that you and I've had, Michelle, of where it's selfish, or what do you mean me? I mean, I got to take care of, I have to do this, that we can fall back into maybe coping mechanisms or strategies that we had as children of where we did put others first. That we had to put others first before our own thoughts and feelings. I mean, theirs took precedence. And what she calls this in her book, this is in chapter 1, she talks about the legacy of, what's the word I said? The legacy
deprivation.
Of deprivation.
Whew.
Breaking the legacy of deprivation.
Lord have mercy.
And if I'm putting my oxygen mask on first, which we know with common sense, yes, we understand the logic of that. But that's not how we necessarily show up in other areas of our life. I have got to deprive myself. Who or what I need is really irrelevant. And we go into this mode of where we're actually trying to draw from an empty well. That's another metaphor.
And as Alan knows, when you gave me that title before we started the show, it was just shocking to me. It was shocking to my system, because that is, there's a certain way you can word things, and it's really powerful. But I know that my self-worth is now, and I just that's what you say is, my self-worth has been tied into what I do for others. My self-worth has been tied into what caring for my community, working like when we first started the community, working obscene hours. I still work a fair amount, but the one rule I made number of years ago was Fridays is my day. And I try never, ever, ever to break that. But my self-care was put second, because my self-worth had to do with how I identified myself as a caretaker for other people. It's weird. You can see how it's all tied together. Right. So I could feel proud, proud that my children were cared for, my grandchildren, and now it's funny because, I babysit a fair amount with my grandchildren, and so they needed me today, and I said, no, I couldn't do it. And so, and I got to tell you, that does not go down easy. It does not go down easy. I did it. I'm glad I did it. I had to do it. I have commitments, but it wasn't easy. And so for those of you listening, if you have that same thing, look at it, look into how you tie those things together.
That is, I had someone wanting to grab a coffee with me. This was last week. And could I have made it happen? Yeah, I could have. I could have shoehorned them into my already full schedule for the day. I felt guilt about saying that I was all booked up that day. And I had to really wrestle with myself to go, oh man, I really should. But then it was sort of like I knew that that was going to cause a whole cascade for myself for the rest of
Mhm,
the day by me fitting them in order so that what that I'm liked, or that I don't know, that
mhm.
they look at me special or something by me fitting them in, that then the rest of the day would be impacted. And it was just this sort of like, oh, boundaries, because I heard this is what I heard you saying there,
Mhm,
that your
mhm.
other people's needs triggered, put you in a position where you had to clarify your boundaries, and clarifying that was a way of practicing self-care, as it was for me. So I had to think about it for really a minute, and just said, I said, "Oh, I'm all booked up today. I'm
Well,
all booked up," and
and
it freed me, and it was
yeah.
good, but it's not always easy.
No, and the other thing, I love this. I love our conversations because the thing that I'm also hearing is that if we don't practice self-care in the nature with which it's meant, and we're going to go into that even more, there, and I know for me again that then what happens is I wind up cheating. Then I get so overdone, I'm stressed out, and then I blow my responsibilities. Then I blow them off. I mean, I don't just stop being responsible, but what happens is I'm so desperate then for downtime or for to break free. Then I used to do it irresponsibly.
Mm,
Now I do it responsibly. Now I measure my care, my peace of mind, my ease, and differently. And I know there was a time, I'm one of those people. I'm so sorry to admit this out loud. This is another true confession, that I would often wait to the last minute for certain things because I got a rush of that pressure, and that pressure would create um, this other energy, and I'd get things done, but
mm,
I'd get them done under pressure. My
that's
God, what an insane way to live. Now, maybe it's my age, that does not feel good to me anymore.
that's
I
right.
don't like waiting to the last minute anymore. It's
It,
not that I don't do it sometimes, but
yeah, oh my gosh, Michelle, I am so, if you and I are the only ones that can relate to this, and we learn from each other, that's we've accomplished the objective. And if you're listening to this and can relate to what we're saying here, but that, the deprivation can create desperation.
okay. Oh, I
That,
like that.
you like I just made that up, but it is, but I could so relate to that, where by depriving myself and putting others' needs over mine. Now, now, of course, there's going to be times where that's called for and that's necessary. It might match my values,
Right, right. Well, that's true.
what my values are in that
Mhm,
instance. But to
mhm,
live my life that way, then this deprivation, it will come out sideways.
mhm,
Myself will try to get needs met, and it will come out sideways, and ways that don't necessarily support me.
right.
And so exploring this topic consciously and investigating the areas of our life, what makes
Mhm,
up our self, what is calling to be cared for, then, oh, maybe then it will not come out as sideways as often. Or we can be more proactive.
mhm, mhm,
We
mhm.
can bring choice into whether we're going to grab that cup of coffee just because they asked, rather than, maybe we'll instead check our availability, what bandwidth do we have, and are we able to, or are we overgiving? Yeah,
Mhm.
this is whew, it's a big topic.
Can we leave now? I just want to go think about everything we just said.
That's, I'll have to come back and watch the recording here. And
Yeah, I have. I mean, I'm up there in my years. My eldest son is 44, so I have, you know, 4 decades plus of prioritizing other people. Now I have been exercising it, but I just think about the years of I conditioned myself out of my lack of self-awareness
Mm.
that I was worthy of this care.
Mhm.
I
Well,
mean,
it goes back to those shadows, right? We talked about
mhm,
last month. So our parents, our teachers, our ministers even, they gave us their best thinking. They
yeah,
gave us their best patterns, their
mhm.
shadows even. And so this is how we've learned to, and we were rewarded, right? People like us if we show up in ways that help them.
Right, but I wanna tie something else then together too, and
Yeah.
I know we have to go on to our discussion points, but something you see, you keep saying things. When to be liked, then we do sabotage our self-love if you're not conscious. We sacrifice our self-love for the what we think is the love and acceptance of another. We
Mm,
have that even wrongly prioritized. I know I have. And then here's the kicker though. If I don't get the reward, and if I don't get the acknowledgement, if I don't get the appreciation, I can find myself feeling
mm,
resentful,
right.
and I got and I believe in and I teach about the whole giving without strings, but sometimes it's still happening.
Right.
And so all you see all the tendrils that this conversation
Mhm,
has, it goes into so many aspects of our humanity.
mhm.
Yeah, we're spiritual beings having a human experience, yes, but our humanity is, that's where we're grounded and where we engage other people. So it's important to look at all parts of this.
Yeah, the thought popped in my head is, I'm writing checks my ass can't cash,
Right, right.
that
Yeah.
when I'm giving in order to get, when I'm giving, right, not from a place of resource, but when I'm giving in order to get their approval or to get others, then I'm overgiving. That's what this is my awareness, right now, is that I'm overgiving, and it can create a overdraft, so to speak, on my energetic account.
Mhm, mhm.
And so yeah. So, I mean, I guess what are the tools that we have available to us? I mean, what is it that we're using? We're talking about awareness and consciousness. This is where we start, right? What are we thinking? What are
Well,
we
I think
thinking?
I think the year and we started where the first month we started doing our show was the month of vulnerability,
Mm,
right? And then authenticity, and then the shadow. And you could see now that every conversation has kind of started to unpack all of the necessary elements. Because when you say, what are the tools? Well, part of the tools are the things that we have been speaking about for months
that's right.
or for many weeks. We've been doing this 17 weeks. So for the prior 16 weeks, all of these conversations about being willing to be seen, to be heard, to be loved, and but not to get, but to expand the presence of of spirit as you. This is part of the tools is saying yes, and even saying no, saying yes. And
Mm,
you're a great one for that. I love that statement you say all the time. If it's not a yes, it's a hard no.
yeah, but it's not a yes, it's a no, at least for right now.
Yeah. I see. I didn't get that. My yes was always like, okay, like, all right. And so I didn't have the tools. I didn't have the self, the self-worth in place to say no to somebody. Not you. I was like saying yes to you. But but there are times I want to say no and I don't.
Oh, it's
Still to this day.
well, it's a process, right? It's a process, and we're
Mhm.
we're we're doing the work together, and we're stepping forward, and we're bringing our awareness to it, and that's something that we teach. that as far as we may not necessarily be able to stop the thoughts that are going through our head, but we do have control over what we're giving our focus and our attention to.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And
Mm-hmm.
so exposing ourselves to these new ideas and new possibilities, we can try them on. What would life feel like if I really, that I really honored my boundaries? Am I aware what my boundaries are? Am I aware what I even need in this area? You brought up that statement, if it's not a yes, it's a no. That was something I heard. That was something I heard when I was in Colorado after hearing self-care is the work. So there were two ideas that sort of became my guiding mantras. One of them was that if it's not a yes, it's a no. And I'm very sort of, I don't want to say kinesthetic, but I do. I feel in my body, right? I'm
Mm-hmm.
auditory kinesthetic.
That's a blessing. Mm-hmm.
And so, so I can feel the yes, I can feel the no. I mean, just you can ask me, and there's already some response within me. And if I really pay attention to that, and so I began to lean into what am I feeling? If it's not a yes, then it's a no. And in society, many times, many people's yeses are actually maybes. And to me, which is a no, maybe is still a no. So, and then the other one that supported me in my self-care evolution is I only walk through open doors. Trying to walk through a closed door, it can be painful. Or
yes.
Or sitting down in front of the door just because it's locked and sitting down there crying and waiting for someone else to open it when that's clearly not the door for me to walk through at this time.
Right.
Go check the other doors. Mm-hmm. And so those two sort of became like guardrails to help me move forward and whether I'm caring for myself or not. It's what am I doing with my energy, and to the reserves, because I only have so much in a 24-hour period, right? I mean, I only have so much. And if I overgive, then it's deprivation. Deprivation will become desperation. And that's not living a life out loud. That's not being authentic. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm thinking about moms that just give birth. Mm. And in this country, and this came out, the statistics, I can't quote them because I don't remember them perfectly, but this came out of the Myth of Normal by Gabor Mate, and he was talking about the time how often women in this country go back to work within 2 weeks of giving birth. Oh, hell no. Your body's not even healed. It should be no less than 6 weeks. And other countries have much healthier standards, maybe 3 months or 4 months or even up to 6 months. So that mom can heal, so she could build a rapport with that new baby and arrive, not because let me tell you, for any mom out there, it can be exhausting, especially if you have a child that doesn't necessarily, that's not, a difficult child. And I'm not saying because the child's trying to be difficult, but I'm talking about that, is it nursing well or sleeping well? I mean, I remember my husband, my first husband and I, we were at our wit's end with my first son. The child never slept. He never slept. I was like a dish rag. I was useless. And I didn't set myself up. I didn't know how to. And we might not have the resources, because that takes some financial resources maybe to get help if you're not fortunate enough to be surrounded by family. But one of the ways that we don't practice self-care is we forget to ask for help.
And we don't ask for help.
Yeah, and new thought, especially in new thought, because we talk often about self-responsibility and being empowered. And I think we confuse that with saying to a friend, could you help me out? And that's being willing to ask for help is a beautiful thing. Not only are you then caring for yourself, but what you're doing is you're giving that person you're asking an opportunity to give. It's like giving them the gift of giving. Because I know if someone, in my community, we have, we do a lot for each other. If people are going in the hospital, they've had procedures, we will do the old fashioned bring meals and give rides. And so I get full when I do that. I get full. So when you ask for help, you are actually allowing someone to give a gift, to give a gift of time and energy and love. And it's a powerful thing. So I would say one of the tools is being willing to ask for help.
Yes.
Another tool is saying no. And the other tool is saying yes, but when you mean it, when your whole body says yes, not just when like, oh, I don't want to disappoint them.
Oh.
Yeah.
Kevin and I are going on a cruise here. Next Friday? Next Friday? And maybe next week we're going on vacation.
Oh, wow.
And it is next Friday. We're leaving out of Boston. And for those of you who geographically, that's about almost an hour away from where I am here in Rhode Island. It's about an hour away. And so the cruise terminal. And Kevin and I were trying to figure out how to get to the cruise terminal.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, well, you know what? We could ask somebody for a ride. And I'll tell you, this went back and forth, this conversation, because I was like, oh, for me, that if someone that would be a big ask, that I'm going to go ahead and drive. I don't know, because I have this story in my head about what it means to drive to Boston from here. It's just, and I have a story that I tell.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's hard, it's difficult. And so there were other options, but I reached out to someone to ask them, and then it was a missed call. I didn't even leave a message because I was like, we're not going to do this. And so Kevin and I decided we're going to take the train instead. We're going to drive up. We've decided to drive now. We're going to drive ourselves. But they called back and they said, oh, I saw I had a missed call from you. And I was like, oh yeah, I was calling, and I'm like, I didn't want to bring it up but I didn't have already something to say. And so I sort of said, well, I was calling to ask for you to give us a ride, while realizing that's a big, so I was like putting it out there, taking it back. And and they were like, you could hear the hesitation in their voice. And it was sort of like, oh, no, I would be happy to do that, And I was just like, oh, stop. I said, it's okay. I'm not asking. But there was a willingness. And I got them to admit that, yeah, that did feel like a little much, but for you, I would do it. And
right. Right. And I don't want us to leave our audience either with thinking that that's not sometimes an okay thing to do.
Oh, it is.
Right. Like, so sometimes you do choose. You do choose to give up your time and energy. Yeah. And sometimes you do choose to do something for someone else. I mean, my friend who recently had a procedure, when she didn't call me for something, and I was actually a little offended. It's like, wait a minute, I'm your friend. Yeah. And it might mean I put something off, but then see, part of that then self-care is that I'm feeding a relationship that matters to me. And if I lived close enough to you and you didn't ask me, I'd be annoyed. I'm like, well, of course I'm going to drive you.
Oh,
of course. Oh. And so take what we say here, but always take it as a balance. There's no one right way. But I want to offer a quote here that, and I'm going to put it oh, I can't. My darn thing doesn't cut and paste. And this is from Araya Mountain Dreamer. And I pulled it up so I can get the exact quote. This is from her poem, The Invitation. And I prepare for this. Okay. This did to me years ago what the legacy of deprivation did when you talked to me earlier. And she says in her poem, I want to know if you can disappoint another to be true to yourself, if you can bear the accusation of betrayal and not betray your own soul. Mic drop for me.
Mm.
I want to know if you can disappoint another to be true to yourself. If you can bear the accusation of betrayal and not betray your own soul. Like, wow, really? That says that what that says, in order to say no to another in that way, it's because I'm declaring that the presence of the one by means of me is valuable. And if I am to continue to give, I need to give from a full, rich place that's fertile. And I can't be fertile if I'm exhausted, if I'm pissed off, if I'm annoyed, if I'm blaming others, if of all those things, if they're in place, I'm not taking care of myself at all. At all.
That is right. I mean, yeah, this deprivation, I mean, breaking the legacy of deprivation. And so this can show up in different areas, so it's not just our bodies. Self-care is not just about our bodies, but I've heard our time. So what are areas? I guess let's get some clear. So what are areas that maybe we don't think of traditionally around self-care? And we've been bringing some of them up, but that we can bring our awareness to them and start to look at it through a different lens. Am I
Mhm.
caring for myself? What are my needs? What are my needs in order for me to live as my authentic self, my highest self? What are my needs in this area, that area? So time is just came to my mind. What comes up for you, Michelle?
Well, the major one that especially again, it when you're younger, you think you're always going to be that vital, that strong, and that energetic. And then there's a point you cross over this boundary and you realize, oh, oh, right. I'm gonna make you laugh. I'm gonna tie this together. I do have something real to say, but yesterday my son's dog dropped a ball down in the most inconvenient place, and he's so weird. He'll just sit there barking and yapping until you get up and get it. And for the first time in a long time, because I decided to take myself back to the gym, and this is where I'm going, which is physical care. And that part's kind of obvious, but for people my age who aren't doing it, folks, get with it. I was able to squat down.
Mm,
I mean, I know that sounds silly. If
no,
you're 20 or 30 or 40, you might not get it, but at 50, 60, and 70, you realize squatting is sometimes a difficult thing. Getting down and up and down off the floor is a difficult thing. So my renewed love of going to the gym and taking care of myself, I was like, oh, I squatted down to pick up the ball.
mm,
I gotta tell you, I was like internally celebrating, like, oh, hallelujah, it's working. The work is working. So physically, and it's not just because you want to be muscle bound or something. You got to take care of the body. It's the only one we have, and gravity is pulling on
this is
the
right.
body temple, and so we need to have some amount of self care in that way. So I had to say it because it was the first. Because I feel like I care for myself emotionally. I care for myself mentally. I care for myself in those ways. But it was the physical where I was lacking grossly. But I loved your thing about time.
Yeah, time.
I hadn't
Time.
really thought about that, to be honest with you.
I mean, I'm sort of like, so it's just a sort of like, so what is it that I need in order to live out loud? So that being, that, after I've investigated the shadow, I've explored shadows, I've been curious, I'm willing to be vulnerable and to let myself be seen and to be heard. I'm curious and interested, and I know that I'm rooted in principles, right? This has been the themes throughout this year. This has been the journey we've been on, rooted in principles and standing in this place. So that which is wanting to be seen and to be heard and to be let out loud, then that version of me is needing and asking for what?
Mhm.
What is its oxygen mask? And so the time that what you talked about physical with my body, am I eating am I nourishing my body with things that support this life?
Mhm.
Emotions. I'm interested in what you mean. So emotionally, how do you care for yourself emotionally? What are you tending to, or tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, that for me, that's my forgiveness work and my shadow work, because then I release baggage. I release baggage. And I had a lot of reasons to carry a lot of baggage. And if I had not done the work, I'd be weighed down, even though that might not translate physically, although often it does. But I would be weighed down emotionally and carrying, you carry these wounds until you clean them up.
That's right.
So for me, for me, that's how I care for myself emotionally. I'm on high alert about my self-talk. I constantly listen. I listen to those messages that are subtle. And one of another tool, and again, I don't remember what you just said that sparked this. One of my greatest self-care practices, which is one of the most difficult to get, is silence. I know
Mm,
that people are always labeling me as an extrovert, but I am not an extrovert. I come out when I have to. I come out to serve. I come out to do what I do. But if without silence, I I can get emotional. My silence is feeds my heart and soul. Now
mm,
that's me though. Every one of us, you, the listener, you must ask yourself, what do I need for me? Not because Michelle said it or Alan said it or the Cheryl Richardson said it. What do I need? What fills my soul? And what fills my heart and my physical body? And there are people there these people with extreme sports, and they decide to go ice climbing. I don't think so. But
mhm,
that might be the thing, right?
mm.
That might be it.
Yeah, I loved what you just said, and I was looking to the baggage, the emotional baggage.
Mm.
It's this sort of like keeping accounts short.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
only have so much energy and so much reserve in caring for myself and tending to that. Then if I'm carrying all of this baggage from the past here in the present, then what energy do I have to actually live the life that's wanting to be lived right now?
Right,
And
right.
so that self-care in the area of our emotions and
Mhm.
our relationships. Oh, yeah, I mean, am I spending time with people that really are important to me?
Mhm. Yep.
Am I making time for that, for quality relationships, harmonious relationships?
When
Or
I grew up one of 7, and, we always had family gatherings. I mean, not just holidays, but we were getting together on a regular basis, and I love that. We have that tradition in my family now. So, Sunday, and I just blogged about this. I'm the only one who has a table big enough to seat all 12 of us when everybody's there. Excuse me. And so for that day, my house is complete chaos. It's a complete mess. It's a disaster. I mean, no matter what, matter of fact, I finally learned to stop cleaning before they come, because with the kids and the dog, and we're running and we're playing, and my house always has an indoor snowball ball fight when the
oh,
family gets together every single time. So, but that kind of chaos and self care, for me, that's part of self care. It's family,
mm,
diving into family. And I know that a lot of us have family issues, but
mhm.
that's part of cleaning it up. That's part of doing the forgiveness work. That's why we do that, so that we can be free to choose. And if we're not doing our emotional work, how can you even begin to think about self-care? You're too busy caught up in reacting.
That's right.
So it's a very important part. Spiritual, that's the other thing, spiritual self-care.
Mhm.
What is that for you? And again, statistics say if you take yourself next to a body of water for like 20 minutes, I mean, it would be great if it was daily. But if you take yourself next to a body of water and just get present to the running water for 20 minutes, that 20 minutes feeds you and helps the stressors in your body to slow down, which
Mm.
lowers the cortisol and all the physical responses it then has. And for you, that might be spiritual enough. For me, it's also spiritual community. For me, it's prayer, meditation. These are other forms of self-care.
Right.
But yeah, spiritually, how are you taking care of yourself spiritually?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an, and it's not enough to just think about it. I mean, because I've known about these things Michelle, you've known about, we've known about these things, but until we're actually embodying and practicing them
Mm-hmm.
and trying them on, putting them on, and we don't get to enjoy the benefits of them until we're doing them. It's not enough just to know about it. And so, where are you at today? So, as you're sitting here today and being part of this conversation on self-care, embracing self-care, and it's more than just about our bodies. As we evolve our concept of self-care for the evolution of ourselves, where are you at today in these areas? No judgment, curious.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing that last week, what did we say? There's the largest room is the room for improvement. Did I say that here? Did I say that?
I love that.
Oh, yeah, largest room was the room for improvement. But there's always our next growing edge, and so we don't beat ourselves up. Or I don't want. Let's not beat ourselves up because we're not somewhere that we're not there yet.
Yeah, and I want to say too. I just writing a note. So
that's self-care. That's self-care.
Yeah, and changing these habits. Don't set yourself up for failure.
Mm.
Little tiny habits, little tiny changes. And a great book for that, I do not remember the name of the author, is a book called Atomic Habits.
Yeah, it's James Clear.
Oh, you have it? Okay. So James speaks about making tiny incremental changes in your routine. Oh, you have it right there? Thank you. There you go. See, I don't have that one in print. I have it on my Audible. So, for example, my self-care initially started with recognizing when my body was stressed. I've now come to recognize a body that's not settled and that's stressful. And your body is telling you. Most of us have learned to ignore it and shut it off, though. Okay. So when you learn to listen to your body's going to tell you when you are stressed. Okay. So one of the things, the very first change I started making a number of years ago was sometimes instead of getting out of bed right away, I would just ease out. I felt the need to just rest. Like sometimes I needed just that. And then in my house, when no one else is home, and I'm not, because I don't expect everyone to love what I love, I put certain music on. One of my favorite channels is the Krishna Das, chanting station, Pandora chanting station. So I have that music running in the back. I'm not even always paying attention to it, but it has this soft, this rhythmic feel to me that feels nurturing. So that you might start with that. You might start with not having 4 cups of coffee a day, but you have 1. Now, I'm not here to claim that coffee isn't good for you, but the point is, if you're drinking more than you want to, don't force yourself. Don't set yourself up for failure. Set yourself up for success. So if you're not physically taking care of yourself at all, start with a 5-minute walk. Start with 5 minutes, because anybody can do 5 minutes, right? At least I think. There are people who can't. But start small. Set yourself up for success so you can build on your own incrementally build on your own successes, which is just a very important thing to do.
Yeah, I'm going to add something to this as a guiding sort of a North Star, and this is coming from Cheryl Richardson, but what I'm even hearing what you're saying here is, we all want to be happy. We all want harmonious relationships. We want to feel good, right? Isn't that the truth? We want to feel good. Yeah. And our finances and our emotions and our bodies and our minds and our spirit and our connection to source, we want to feel good. We want to feel that flow. And so use that as a guidance for setting up and creating self-care in your life. She actually uses the word pleasure, which is one of our topics this month, to actually self-care is about making pleasure welcome in our lives, right? The feeling good. Why would we do this? For those times, because we can't hold back. We have no control. No matter how much we try, we have no control over everything that's going on out there. Like it's going to the beach and trying to hold back the waves. And sometimes things show up in our life, disruptions, things that don't feel so good, other people's problems, what they want and what they need from us. And if for us putting our oxygen mask on is creating that space for feeling good now, not depriving ourselves for some time that we may not. And so it isn't selfish. It is collaborating with life to express and to live life now.
Yep.
So what would we be doing? We would be feeling good and doing activities that feel good to us. So let pleasure be a guiding star. And that we're going to have a whole week. Actually, that's the week I'm going to be gone. That's there will be some discussions around pleasure and feeling good.
Yeah, I want to put in one quick little thing too, because you said money, you said finances. That's kind of an important thing, and that we could do a whole thing about that. So I'll have to add that in somewhere during the month. But this morning I went to my granddaughter's recorder concert at school. It was precious. 3 third graders, right? And then afterwards, I wanted breakfast, and I was going to take myself out to eat. And so, which would have been fine. How much could that cost? But the truth is, I thought to myself, I could just go home, make breakfast, not spend the money, and I'll feel better about that, and I'll have a healthier breakfast. Like, you can make simple little decisions, because if I hadn't done that afterwards, I might have said, why did I do that? If we can become proactive and pay attention to the things that sometimes we regret afterwards and then get ahead of that, that's a great way to make small changes, small incremental changes.
That is, that I love that. And that's why we're talking about it.
Yes.
Because it's so vitally important.
Yep.
Caring for ourselves. If we are going to live out loud, then what are we doing? And so be proactive about it. And proactive enough that where we're actually planning for our good and our own well-being.
Yes.
That's a different way of looking at it. Hey, Isabel, so good to see you. Isabel, we're glad that you got to join us here today as well. Well, we're coming up on that time.
Yes, we are.
We're coming up on
as always.
That's right. It comes here. It shows up.
I will always laugh when I said to you, a whole hour? I swore we were going to run out of conversation before we ran out of time. Not once, not ever. I should have.
It has it. We have to oops, it's that time. And so within that time, Michelle, let's go ahead. I'm going to put up your information. It's like where to find you at and what's going on for you. I know you got a lot of stuff happening. Planned Happiness Institute's a good place.
Please, visit the site. You can sign up to receive my blog and get the newsletter. And very soon to now, I'm in the middle of a major project. I'm excited, and I'm just going to give you a little teaser. And the word I want to say is the inner landscape, and you'll know more about that as time goes on. But,
inner landscape.
yeah, I have a lot of beautiful projects going on. And you, Ellen?
Oh, yeah. So once again, you can find me, Reb Ellen Vukas on Facebook or at Concordia CSL, where we talk about these topics each week. And also at New Thought, New Life, I've got some writing that I'm going to be doing that I'm working on as far as my journey around self-care this month as I'm diving in this topic. So, the only thing that stands between us and our next life, our next highest good is a thing of thought. That's what Ernest Holmes says. It's a thing of thought. And so with a new thought, I can have a new life. And so, join me over there at New Thought, New Life.
Yes.
As I write about self-care and subscribe to us. We're going to send out the show notes to to what we talked about today. We'll send out the audio podcast that you can listen to this and share this with your friends. But if you go to livingoutloud.show, make sure to check us out there and stay up to date with what's going on here.
Yes.
So I'd like to pray us out, Michelle, as we.
Sure. Yes. So, join me as we move to a state of consciousness, of acceptance, allowance, of aligning with the one, accepting the good and the glorious activity of love and health and wholeness and self-care to be our reality. Let each one who is listening, let each one of us take in and make decisions based on self-love that leads to self-care. I so believe in your ability to rise up and to experience your own evolution. Let us celebrate that self-evolution today. Right now, the self-evolution is the evolution of self-care. So I believe in each one listening that the presence by means of you has the power to do that through you and as you. For this, I am so grateful. And I surrender this word to love and to law. And so it is.
So it is.
Be well, be brilliant.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.